77 WABC. The world is a brighter place with the Yola Nash Show. Listen why the world's biggest stars love talking to Yola Nash on WABC Radio, The Yola Nash Show.
77 WABC. Welcome to the Yola Nash Show. I'm your host, Yola Nash, and I'm so happy to introduce my great guest. He's been a music master in film, television, commercials, and in the concert hall for nearly 25 years. He has received multiple Emmy Awards and many other prestigious awards, and he's joining me now in our WABC studio. Welcome to the show, Robert Miller.
So happy to be here with you, Yola.
Your career is so impressive. And let's start with the question, how did you first enter the world of composing?
Well, I'm a Bronx boy.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up about 20 blocks from Yankee Stadium, and I was very obsessed with music since a very, very small kid. Like, there's films of me with a room full of instruments at like 2 years old. And so I was always, music-centric. When I was about 10, I decided I was listening to some classical music, and I heard Copland's Third Symphony, who later became one of my mentors for real. And I was so enthralled. I went, wow, okay, that is for me. So I was playing in the Bronx. I was starting to listen to classical music, especially American symphonic music. And one thing led to another all through my high school years, and to this day, where I'm still that 10-year-old. I'm just as excited, but with many wonderful experiences under my belt at this point.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your formative years and how did you create your own beautiful musical style?
I mentioned Copland, and it wasn't just Copland. I mean, I'm a Bronx boy, so I was listening to the Beatles, the Beach Boys, Jimi Hendrix, Cream, Motown, lots of different stuff. And I remember I met a contemporary of Copland's first, William Schumann was his name, at Juilliard, and I was apologetically telling him that in addition to loving the orchestra, that I loved all these pop bands. And he shook me and he went, finally, a young man who's willing to kind of talk about experiences that are natural, that are much broader than the orchestra. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, I loved the sound of the symphony orchestra. So in listening to all these divergent things, I just, one by one, with your heroes, you emulate your heroes first, and then in doing so, you find your own idiosyncrasies, which in turn become your sound. So it was that kind of thing. And, I when I was 21 till 22 and a half or so, when I had Copland, it was the most, I think, significant experience with a mentor that I'd ever had.
Wow. And you wrote 60 film scores. It's just so amazing. I just can't even imagine. Tell me how the creative process goes. Do you first watch these scenes and then analyze it and then come up with some concept? How does it work? It's a great question, and it seems like something that a lot of people would be wondering about. So it's not exactly the same for every project. It's not cookie cutter, but normally, even if a director gives me a script, even if that happens, the composer's work really can't begin in earnest on a film until you have at least a rough cut, because everything about the film, the speed of the edit, the way the actors deliver their lines, the colors, everything is informed by what's on screen, and then you can begin to form an opinion about what you think the score should be like. So generally a rough cut, at least a good assembly. An assembly is kind of a long, rough cut for anyone who doesn't know what happens in film as a film is being edited. And then the composer, like myself, comes in and we begin with broad, gestures, main themes. Mm-hmm. We have spotting sessions where we talk about where music goes in a film. And then as a film is refining its cut and themes are underway, and the scoring's going on, and we're sitting there in my room debating stuff. Somehow, 6 weeks later, sometimes a few months later, it all gets done. Magically. Magic happens,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
One of your last films received an Oscar nomination last year, Knife Skills. And this film is doing so much good. It's so inspirational.
Yes, it is. It's one of the
very
few...
unique project. Right?
Yes, that's absolutely unique. I love Tom Lennon too, the director, and I didn't take the film for anything other than a beautiful story first, but then I started to find out about the mission statement of Knife Skills, which, it's really, for anyone who hasn't seen the film, I recommend it so highly. It's all about hardened criminals who get to rehabilitate their entire lives by becoming French chefs in a Cleveland restaurant called Edwin's.
Idea.
Amazing. And these and the characters in this film really do genuinely start over, and they have such seriousness about this. This isn't perfunctory, like, I got to do something with my life now. They're passionate, and they're inspirational, and they're all soulful people. I mean, I got to feel so close to this group just from the screen. And Tom has taken the film all over the country to hopefully ignite more conversations and more action for people who are looking to really not just get out of prison and exist and maybe just simply stay out of trouble, but do something great.
Yeah,
so it's a really good
society
that's
in a
right.
productive and positive way. Right?
Yes, yeah, it's fantastic.
Out of trouble.
I love this film, and while I'm sorry it didn't pick up an Oscar, because what the Oscar would do is shine even more light. It's kind of one of those things where the awards, we all think, that's cool, we won, but a lot of times it's about shining a light on something, and that helps the film just have even more of a potent life.
Yes.
So it didn't receive that, but it received so many accolades leading up to it, and the nomination itself is pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing. My gosh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
And also, one more film I would like to emphasize and tell people about it is upcoming, actually, its big release, The King. Tell us about it. It's something so incredible and unique.
Okay, yes, The King. First of all, I did find out that late June, I'm not allowed to say the exact day, but late June is when the film is released. It's a Universal Film Worldwide oscilloscope in the United States, and it's one of my other longtime director collaborations, Eugene Jarecki, and Steven Soderbergh, a famous filmmaker in his own right, is the exec producer. It is such an interesting big idea. It's the parallel between the life of Elvis Presley and the life of the United States of America. Now, Eugene is very opinionated and very pointed and not veiled in his opinions politically.
Right. And
he and I don't always agree, but it almost makes it for a better teaming, because he finds me to be his idealistic sounding board. I'm very deeply passionate American, citizen. And Eugene, he likes to point out things that he thinks need to be bettered about our society. So he's really taken a big step here with trying to just show the track of Elvis Presley's life and the track of our country. And, a lot of it is incredibly interesting when you see this young, idealistic, energetic, passionate young artist, very idealistic, full of energy. He gets harnessed by big powers. He becomes famous. He becomes wealthy. The wealth begins to insinuate itself into his life and the life of the people in his life. And it kind of derails things a little bit. And, so far, no matter where you are politically, so far that's like, yeah, that kind of sounds about right for the U.S.
Yes.
And so he goes from there, and he shows this parallel. It's got an amazing amount of stars, tremendous amount of music. You're going to come to see this film.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to get a little group together. You're going to come with me, okay, Yola?
I promise.
And it's fascinating. I'm very proud of the film.
You have achieved so much, and your career is so rich, and it would take hours and hours to talk about everything. But I also would like to mention that you've worked and probably will continue working with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the brilliant astrophysicist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Neil, we're friends, and I love Neil. I remember one incredible moment. So I've done 4 space shows to date. There's another one coming up in the next year.
Amazing.
And we get a chance to just spend an evening in the dome. When I was 5 years old, and the dome was a little bit different than it is now, I remember sitting in the dome, just going, this is the coolest place on earth. Just as a little kid space geek. Now I'm an adult, and I'm standing with Neil deGrasse Tyson. We're standing there alone, and we're looking up at some of the projected images of the new show.
Right.
And I said, Neil. And I started to talk about this is profound. This is so lyrical, and this blah, blah. And he says, wow, Robert, I know you're a musician, but you're talking a little bit like a scientist. And Neil was talking in his own way. And I said, you sound a little bit like a musician. And we realized it was like that commercial where you got chocolate in my peanut butter. You got peanut butter, and we realized that there's this tremendous meeting place between artists and scientists. And I sincerely mean this. I'm sure a lot of your listeners would agree with me that we're looking for answers to why we are in the world at all, and we're trying to explain things in our own ways. Yeah.
You know what, Robert? We have to meet again because there's so much more to talk about. You are so amazing, multi-talented, and before we say goodbye, I want you to give our listeners your website, your social media handles, where they can find out more about you and follow you.
Sure. And all the social media handles are on the website. So I'll just say that if you go to www.screensoundalliance, all one word, screensoundalliance.com, you can read more about me, about my company, about the stuff I do in commercials,
yes,
about the Hall of Fame film that I'm working on right now for Cooperstown, for all this cool stuff. So all that, it's all there, and that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you for stopping by today. And to all of our listeners, here is one of the greatest composers we could see and follow and sometimes meet in New York, probably.
Oh my gosh! Well, I didn't.
Robert Miller.
I don't think I earned that, but thank you, Yola.
Intimate conversations with some of the world's biggest stars. Only on the Yola Nash Show on WABC Radio. Tune in every weekend.